There is a powder in almost every kitchen pantry that kills aphids, fungal disease, slugs, and soil pests on contact. Costs pennies per application and leaves no chemical residue on food crops. The garden pesticide industry has spent decades making sure most people never connect this ingredient to what it can do outdoors. The powder is baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, and it has been documented in horticultural and agricultural research as an effective pest and disease control compound since at least the 1980s, when Cornell University researchers published findings on its ability to suppress powdery mildew on a range of crops. The compound itself has been around since the mid-1800s, and before commercial pesticides existed, kitchen and pantry ingredients were what farmers used because there was nothing else. The reason most gardeners today do not know this is straightforward. A box of baking soda costs under $2 and lasts through dozens of applications. That is not a product with a meaningful profit margin for any company selling garden chemicals. Here is how it works on 3 separate pest and disease problems, starting with the one that affects the most home gardens. Fungal disease, specifically powdery mildew, black spot on roses, and early blight on tomatoes is caused by fungal spores that need a specific surface pH to germinate and spread. Most fungal plant pathogens thrive in a slightly acidic to neutral surface environment. Baking soda is alkaline, and when it is applied to leaf surfaces, it raises the surface pH to a level that inhibits fungal spore germination. A Cornell University study confirmed that a solution of baking soda, water, and a small amount of horticultural oil significantly reduced powdery mildew infection rates on cucumbers and other susceptible plants. The formula that came out of that research has been used by organic gardeners ever since. 1 tablespoon of baking soda mixed with 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil and 1 gallon of water, with a few drops of dish soap added as an emulsifier, sprayed directly onto affected leaves every 7 to 10 days through the growing season, provides measurable disease suppression on a wide range of crops. Apply it in the early morning or evening rather than during peak sunlight hours, since the oil component can cause leaf burn if it sits on foliage in direct midday sun. The second application is aphids and soft-bodied insects. A solution of baking soda and water mixed at roughly 1 teaspoon per liter of water with a few drops of dish soap applied directly to aphid colonies on stems and undersides of leaves disrupts the soft, waxy coating that aphids rely on to retain moisture. The same mechanism that makes diatomaceous earth effective on crawling insects applies here in a liquid form. The baking soda damages the aphid's protective layer, and the dish soap acts as a surfactant that ensures the solution makes contact with the insect rather than beating off. Aphids reproduce extremely quickly. A single aphid can produce up to 80 offspring per week, which is why spray applications need to be repeated every 5 to 7 days during an active infestation rather than being treated as a single application fix. Spray in the evening when beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings are less active, since they are the aphid's natural predators and you want to preserve them while targeting the pest population. The third application is soil application against fungal root diseases and soil-dwelling pests, including slugs and certain soil grubs. Sprinkling dry baking soda lightly around the base of plants, along the soil line, rather than directly on roots or stems, creates an alkaline barrier that slugs find extremely uncomfortable to cross. Slugs breathe through their skin and are highly sensitive to pH changes on their body surface, and the dry baking soda reacts with the moisture on a slug's body, making the area around treated plants a hostile environment for slug movement. A light dusting once a week around seedlings and leafy vegetables that slugs target most, specifically hostas, lettuce, strawberries, and young brassicas, is enough to redirect slug activity away from those plants without using iron phosphate baits or metaldehyde pellets. The baking soda dissolves with rain and watering and needs to be reapplied after each significant rainfall. Now, for the part that almost every guide on this topic gets wrong, and it matters because getting it wrong can damage your plants more than the pests. Concentration is everything with baking soda applications. The studies that confirmed its effectiveness used modest concentrations, typically 1 tablespoon per gallon of water for the oil-based fungal spray and lower concentrations for the direct insect spray. At high concentrations, baking soda can cause leaf tip burn and sodium accumulation in soil, which affects plant health over time. More is not better here. The goal is to modify the surface pH enough to deter fungal germination and soft-bodied pests without pushing the environment to the point where the plant itself is stressed. If you see leaf tip browning after applying this spray, the concentration is too high. Dilute the mixture further, and the problem resolves. Always test any new application on a small section of the plant first and wait 24 hours before treating the whole plant. The same practice any experienced grower uses with any unfamiliar treatment. There is a fourth use worth covering that is completely separate from pest control, but is one of the most well-documented garden applications of baking soda. Tomato flavor is directly influenced by the sugar-to-acid ratio in the fruit. Sprinkling a small amount of baking soda onto the soil around tomato plants, not on the plants themselves, reduces soil acidity slightly and can result in sweeter, less sharp-tasting tomatoes. The baking soda does not directly affect what is inside the tomato, but it adjusts the pH of the soil water that the plant takes up, which influences the organic acid concentration in the fruit. Gardeners who have tested this report a noticeable difference in flavor from plants given a light baking soda soil treatment mid-season compared to untreated plants in the same bed. Use about 1 tablespoon scattered around the drip line of each plant once when fruits are beginning to form, and no more than that in a single season since repeated applications can push soil pH too far in the alkaline direction. Old kitchen gardens and farmstead vegetable plots ran almost entirely on pantry-based treatments for the simple reason that commercial inputs were expensive and inconsistent before the mid-20th century. Kitchen gardens attached to farmhouses in the 19th century and earlier were maintained with wood ash for pH adjustment, soap-based sprays for insects, and mineral compounds including bicarbonates for fungal suppression. The shift to packaged chemical inputs was a commercial development, not an agronomic one, and the underlying effectiveness of pantry-based treatments was never disproved. It was simply buried under decades of marketing for products that required repeat purchasing. There is a fifth application that old kitchen gardeners used routinely, and that has almost completely disappeared from modern gardening guides, despite still working exactly as well as it always did. Before planting seeds in soil with a history of damping off, the fungal disease that kills seedlings at the soil line just after germination, lightly coating seeds with a small amount of dry baking soda. Before planting, creates an alkaline microenvironment around the seed casing during the critical first days of germination. Damping off is caused by several soil-borne fungal pathogens, including Pythium and Rhizoctonia, both of which are inhibited by alkaline conditions. The baking soda coating does not harm the seed since germination occurs regardless of external surface pH, but it suppresses the fungal activity in the immediate zone around the seed during its most vulnerable period. This is particularly useful in cold, wet springs when damping off is most likely, and for crops that are notoriously susceptible, including tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and most annual flowers started from seed indoors. Ants in the garden are also worth addressing here since they connect directly to the aphid problem covered earlier in a way that most gardeners do not realize. Ants actively farm aphid colonies. They carry aphid eggs to protected locations during winter, move aphid populations to new plant growth in spring, and protect aphid colonies from predators, including ladybugs and parasitic wasps, in exchange for the sugary honeydew that aphids secrete. A garden with a heavy ant population will almost always have an aphid problem for exactly this reason, since the ants are actively managing and protecting the aphid colony. A ring of dry baking soda around the base of plants with active aphid infestations disrupts the ant trails servicing those colonies and reduces the protection ants provide to the aphids, which makes the aphid spray significantly more effective because the aphid population loses its active management and defense. If you try the fungal spray this season, apply it preventatively before you see disease symptoms rather than reactively once infection has already spread. since it suppresses germination of new spores rather than clearing existing infection. The Aphid spray works best applied in the evening and repeated every 5 to 7 days until the colony collapses. The slug barrier needs refreshing after rain. All 3 applications together cover the most common pest and disease problems in a typical home vegetable garden for about $2 a season. The next video covers another single pantry ingredient with a similarly buried garden application that most commercial products are based on, and it handles a completely different category of garden problem. Stay subscribed for that one. Let me know in the comments what your worst garden pest or disease problem is right now, because that tells me exactly which application to cover in more detail next, and which region-specific problems are affecting the most gardens this season.